Hey guys, today I wanted to talk about seasons in Diablo 4 and why I'm very optimistic and very excited to be playing seasons. Now, I think more than any other game I've seen, Diablo 4 is designed with seasons in mind from basically the get go. This is why I've seen so many people say this criticism of it's a great base, the framework's all there, it just needs to expand more. And this is why I think seasons are going to be that X factor, that extra, content, that extra progression system that is going to change the game in kind of the direction that I think a lot of people envision it to go. And if we compare to, like, let's say Diablo 3, for example, Diablo 3 launched in May 2012. Its base game was well received, but it obviously had a lot of problems, and I think that's why a lot of people stopped playing. Reaper of Souls came out in March of 2014, which is just about 2 years later. And that added a lot of the end game content and progression that we see in, ARPGs that are kind of modern, as well as things like they had the rifts and the greater rifts, just similar to the nightmare dungeons. But keep in mind that Seasons and Reaper of Souls did not come out until August of 2014. That's over 5 months from when Reaper of Souls came out. So I don't know if Seasons in Diablo 3 were like a core part of the game, or if it was something added, basically half a year after Reaper of Souls came out, just to give it some more longevity and also just test to see if Seasons were something that people like to do. Now, in Diablo 3, the first season was kind of a joke. It was double treasure goblins, and I don't think anybody got interested for that. It was such a bad idea, such a weak idea that, again, I don't think the point of seasons back then was to actually create new and engaging content. However, I am pretty confident that we are not going to get something like that. And that's because, again, seasons are going to be a pretty important part of the game, and I can kind of tell because we only had a month and a half until season 1 comes out from the release of the game. Season 1 is slated to come out mid to late July. The game came out early June. That's, again, a month and a half. That's half of a regular season, which is crazy. It's insane that they would release season 1 so soon after the release of the game. Like, you're giving people half of a season to get their character going, to enjoy the base game, and then you're throwing them on a seasonal reset. And again, you can still play your old character, but you're going to be highly encouraged to go and hit season 1. So that's giving me a lot of optimism, kind of huffing that hopium right now, hoping that the game will improve. It's actually been a little bit problematic for a lot of people because they're thinking like, oh, well, why would I play season 1? Why would I play the game now if season 1 is coming in like a month? And I do think that seasons are going to be shaking it up. Now, why am I so confident we're not going to see double treasure goblins again? Well, I think that, again, because it is such a core component of the game, and also because season 1 is basically completely done at this point. That means season 1 is not just going to be an addition to Diablo 4, it was very much built with Diablo 4 in mind. While the development stage was going on, they're already done with season 1, and I wouldn't be surprised if season 2 and season 3, all of those mechanics were also like more or less figured out, and they're just basically like waiting for the game to develop, and maybe they make like a couple changes here and there. So this to me means that there was a lot of development work going in. The game is not adding in seasons while it's already in like this maintenance mode, and they're just adding something to give people playing. It's very much going to be a key part of the game. And I can kind of tell that we're not going to get something. I don't think we're going to get something like the double treasure goblin or anything stupid like that. Anything, kind of like a joke, because really, I think Path of Exile is responsible here. It's kind of changed the landscape of ARPGs and what a season is, because seasons or leagues in Path of Exile, that's what they're called there, they add an insane amount of new content that really changes how you're playing the game, and shifts the game to be one where, like, there is a whole new horizontal progression system. And on top of that, everything that worked in previous seasons kind of gets added to the regular game as well, which is great. It means that the seasons become kind of like a testing ground for new content, new progression, new side content, new side quests, all of that. And then whatever works, whatever people like, it ends up becoming permanent in the game. And that just creates this growing. The good stuff basically gets integrated into the main game. The bad stuff gets weeded out. Now, you might think, okay, well, this isn't Path of Exile, right? This is Diablo 3, this is Diablo 4. Well, even in Diablo 3, I think that they actually adopted this style of, seasons where they do have a lot of good stuff. And I can actually go ahead and look at, if I bring up here, this was season 28, the last season of Diablo 3, and I played it a lot, and it was a really incredible season. And it brought this new thing called the Altar of Rites, which was a new tree that you would progress down. You had to, make offerings of certain like resources and other interesting things that you would go and collect. And then you would work your way down this tree, and eventually you could actually get everything. But as you got down, you'd get stronger and stronger and stronger effects. And this was really that sense of horizontal progression that I think is missing from Diablo 4. And I would really love to see something like this added to the game to give you something else to work on your character that's not just leveling, which is kind of boring. Now, again, this was the tree. And if we actually go and see what kind of things are on there. Now, it started off, not great. It was like plus 200 damage. Items have no level requirement, which is actually, if even in Diablo 4, that would be a really cool thing. So I'm not dropping like level 98 gear that I can't trade. But even stuff like movement speed, damage against elites, melee damage reduction. And as we go further down into the tree, you would start to get things like pets picking up resources, which was the Death's Breath, damage done to bosses increased by 25%, double the chance to find a legendary from the Gambler. And at the very end, your potions would actually do new effects, such as getting a random shrine or a pylon effect. And once you finish the entire board, you were done with everything. The very last node there would be this. When a primal item drops, a second random primal item drops as well. Now, if you think about that in terms of Diablo 4, that's like whenever you drop a unique, a second unique drops. Which is crazy. I mean, that's a really, really strong power, and that would really shift how you're playing the game on top of all the other things that I've mentioned. And again, it's not just the fact that you're unlocking new stuff. It's actually the process of going and unlocking that, giving you something to work towards, tangible goals. That's not just like, oh, you're level 70, go kill Echo of Lilith. Go do, the highest nightmare dungeon you can. It's a lot more tangible sense of progression. So for my final point, why not just include all of that content in the game right now? If they know what they need to do, why not just put it in there already? And honestly, I think it's okay to space out some of this content a little bit. First off, it avoids bloating the game, especially because I think the best seasons are ones where you get to interact with it from a very early level. I don't like this idea that like, oh, the season comes out and now you have to level to like 70 before you can ever interact with the new stuff. I feel that when a season comes out, you should be able to interact with it from level 1, which I think makes the season engaging and makes it more fun to play. In addition, it's also a good filler so that only the good stuff ends up integrating into the main game. Like we talked about earlier, imagine if every time a unique dropped, a second unique dropped. Well, that would be a really cool thing for a 3-month season where your character is, basically gone at the end of the season. But in the main game, I don't know if that's necessary. The other stuff could still be fun, but that second unique, I think it would just feel a little awkward every time you drop a unique, getting a second one in the main game for the rest of the game's existence. So the season acts as sort of like a way to, pick out what's good, get community feedback, and then integrate the good stuff and then drop the bad stuff. Again, it's really hard to like ship a base game out and then start stripping away features that people don't like. Finally, I also avoids bloating the early game, especially if you're coming into the game like 5 years later. And this actually did happen to me for Path of Exile. I only started playing it a couple months ago. And, while I did enjoy the experience a lot, there were a lot of times where I was like, oh my God, there's Crucible and there's the Bestiary and there's Heist and there's all of this other stuff. And I have no idea what I'm even doing. And it feels like side content, but it also feels like I'm supposed to be doing. And it's just a little bit too much if you're a new player coming into it. So I don't really mind spacing out the content a little bit and slowly dripping it into the main game. That way it's not this over bloating at the end game. Anyways, guys, I'm really excited for seasons. I think they're going to be absolutely great. I can't wait to see some more announcements about what the actual season features are. Again, I'd love to see some horizontal progression, like I mentioned, like the Altar of Right system. And I would also love to see some real capstone difficulty in the forms of bosses or some new dungeons. That would be really great. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in Season 1.